The story begins with Billy Batson standing at an important point in his life. Although he possesses incredible powers and can transform into the mighty Shazam with a single word, inside he still feels like an ordinary teenager trying to understand where he belongs. Billy often worries about the future because his foster siblings are growing older and becoming more independent every day. Some are planning for college, while others are beginning to think seriously about their own lives and careers. Billy cannot stop thinking about the possibility that one day everyone may leave and go their separate ways. After spending most of his childhood without a real family, losing the people who finally accepted him feels more frightening than any villain or monster he has ever fought. During conversations with adults around him, Billy tries to hide these fears behind jokes and confidence, but deep inside he feels insecure about whether he truly deserves the family he now has. These emotions slowly begin affecting his confidence as a leader, because he believes that if he fails as Shazam, he might also fail as the brother holding his family together. Meanwhile, the citizens of Philadelphia have become used to seeing the Shazam family flying across the city and responding to emergencies. Their latest mission quickly turns into one of the biggest rescue operations they have ever faced when a bridge suddenly begins collapsing during heavy traffic. Cars slide toward the edge while terrified families scream for help as metal structures break apart beneath them. Billy immediately calls the family into action, and within seconds, superheroes are flying in every direction, trying to save civilians before disaster strikes. However, despite their powers, the mission becomes chaotic because every member has a different plan. Some focus on lifting vehicles to safety, while others attempt to hold the bridge together long enough for people to escape. Billy tries to coordinate everyone, but struggles under the pressure of making life or death decisions in seconds. Eventually, they succeed in preventing a complete catastrophe, saving countless lives in the process. Unfortunately, the destruction left behind becomes the main topic in news reports. Instead of celebrating the heroes, many people criticize their methods and question whether they are actually capable of protecting the city responsibly. Billy hears every comment and every joke, and each one makes him doubt himself even more. Far away from Philadelphia, a completely different story begins unfolding, inside a museum containing magical artifacts connected to ancient history. Without warning, two mysterious women appear and walk through the building with complete confidence, as though ordinary security means nothing to them. Guards attempt to stop them, but the women possess powers far beyond human understanding. They reveal themselves to be daughters of Atlas, ancient beings whose connection to magic stretches back thousands of years. Their purpose is simple but terrifying. Recover the magical staff once used by the wizard who granted powers to Billy and his family. To them, the powers carried by the Shazam family do not belong to humans at all. They believe those abilities were stolen from the gods, and they have returned to reclaim what was taken from their family centuries earlier. Using powerful magic, the sisters recover the broken staff and begin restoring its lost energy. As magical lightning spreads across the artifact, ancient forces that have remained dormant for generations begin waking once again. Strange storms start forming, and disturbances in the magical balance of the world become impossible to ignore. Back in school, Freddie Freeman continues enjoying superhero life more than anyone else in the family. Unlike Billy, Freddie fully embraces every adventure that comes with their powers, and often dreams of becoming a legendary hero known across the world. However, normal life remains difficult for him because many classmates fail to understand him or take him seriously. Everything changes when he meets a mysterious new girl who immediately seems interested in him. Their conversations feel natural and comfortable, giving Freddie something he has not experienced in a long time, the feeling that someone outside his family genuinely understands him. The two quickly develop a friendship, and Freddie begins looking forward to seeing her every day. Unknown to him, however, this meeting is not a coincidence. The girl carries secrets connected directly to the Daughters of Atlas and the growing conflict surrounding the stolen powers of the gods. Freddie believes he may have finally found someone special, but in reality he may have unknowingly stepped directly into the center of a dangerous plan that could threaten everyone he loves. As the Daughters of Atlas continue restoring the magical staff, their anger toward humanity grows stronger. They blame the wizard and the Shazam family for stealing divine abilities that were never meant for humans to possess. To them, this is not simply revenge, but justice delayed for centuries. Billy remains completely unaware of the danger approaching him and his family. He believes his biggest challenge is learning how to become a better leader and keeping his family together as they grow older. Soon he will discover that his fears are about to be tested in ways he never imagined possible. Ancient gods, mythical creatures, and powers capable of reshaping reality itself are preparing to enter his world. For the first time since becoming Shazam, Billy will face enemies who are not interested in money, fame, or control of a city. They want the very source of his power, and they are willing to destroy everything standing in their way to get it back. The battle between heroes and gods is about to begin, and Billy Batson has no idea that the fate of his family and the entire world is about to rest on his shoulders. Freddie Freeman's ordinary school day takes an unexpected turn when he grows closer to a mysterious new student named Anne. Unlike most people at school, she listens to his stories, understands his sense of humor, and never treats him like an outsider. For Freddie, who has spent years feeling different because of his disability and secret superhero life, her attention feels refreshing and genuine. Their conversations quickly become the highlight of his days, and for the first time in a long while, Freddie begins to imagine a future that includes more than just fighting villains and saving the city. However, unknown to him, Anne is hiding a secret powerful enough to change everything he believes about his world. While Freddie sees an ordinary girl with an interest in mythology and history, the truth is far more complicated and dangerous than he could ever imagine. At the same time, Billy Batson continues struggling with his responsibilities as both a teenager and the leader of the Shazam family. Although the public sees powerful heroes flying through the skies of Philadelphia, Billy feels increasingly uncertain about his ability to keep everyone together. His foster siblings are becoming more independent every day, and he worries that eventually they will leave to pursue their own lives, leaving him alone once again. These fears affect his confidence during missions, causing him to overthink decisions and place enormous pressure on himself. The recent criticism from the media following the bridge rescue only makes things worse. Instead of feeling like a successful hero, Billy feels like a teenager pretending to be one. He wants to prove that he deserves both his powers and his family, but deep inside he fears he may lose both. Meanwhile, far from the city, the Daughters of Atlas continue restoring the ancient magical staff they recovered from the museum. Hespera and Calypso reveal more of their true intentions as they discuss the power that was taken from their father centuries earlier. To them, the wizard's decision to give divine abilities to ordinary humans was an unforgivable betrayal of the gods. They believe that humanity has misused powers that were never meant to belong to them, and that balance can only be restored by taking those powers back. As magical energy returns to the staff, strange disturbances begin spreading throughout the world. Storm clouds appear without warning, unusual lightning fills the skies, and ancient magic starts leaking into places where it has remained dormant for centuries. The sisters understand that time is finally working in their favor, and they prepare for the next phase of their plan. Freddy's life changes forever when Hespera and Calypso suddenly appear before him and Anne. Realizing that something is terribly wrong, Freddy transforms into his superhero form and prepares to fight. However, he quickly discovers that these enemies operate on an entirely different level from anyone he has faced before. Their control over magic allows them to neutralize his attacks with ease, and despite fighting bravely, Freddy finds himself completely outmatched. During the confrontation, the truth about Anne is finally revealed. She is actually Anthea, the youngest daughter of Atlas and sister to Hespera and Calypso. The revelation leaves Freddy shocked and confused, because the person he trusted most has been hiding her true identity from the very beginning. Yet, as events unfold, it becomes clear that Anthea does not share her sister's hatred toward humanity. Unlike them, she questions whether revenge is truly the answer, and shows concern for Freddy's safety even while standing beside her family. When news of Freddy's capture reaches Billy and the rest of the Shazam family, panic spreads through the group. Billy immediately blames himself, believing that as the leader he should have protected his brother from danger. The family quickly realizes that this conflict is unlike anything they have experienced before. They are no longer fighting criminals seeking money or power, but ancient beings capable of controlling the very forces of magic itself. As they begin searching for Freddy and trying to understand their new enemies, Billy faces the difficult realization that leadership is not about having all the answers. Sometimes it means continuing to move forward even when fear and uncertainty threaten to overwhelm you. Unfortunately for Billy, the situation is about to become even worse. As the Daughters of Atlas prepare their next move, the magical balance protecting the human world begins to weaken. Strange creatures from myths and legends start appearing in unexpected places, and signs of an approaching catastrophe become impossible to ignore. The walls separating worlds are beginning to crack, and if the staff reaches its full power, the consequences could affect the entire planet. Billy and his family now face an impossible challenge: rescue Freddy, stop the Daughters of Atlas, and prevent the return of an ancient age ruled by gods and monsters. For the first time since gaining his powers, Billy understands that being a hero may require more than courage and strength. It may require sacrifices he never imagined he would have to make, and the battle waiting ahead could determine not only the fate of his family, but the future of humanity itself. The capture of Freddie Freeman sends shockwaves through the entire Shazam family. Billy immediately feels responsible, believing that as the team's leader he should have protected his brother from falling into enemy hands, while the others try to remain calm and focus on finding a solution. Billy struggles with guilt and frustration. Every mission, every decision, and every mistake suddenly feels heavier than before. For years he had feared losing his family, and now that fear seems closer to becoming reality. The family quickly realizes that the daughters of Atlas are not ordinary villains who can be defeated with strength alone. They possess knowledge of ancient magic that makes even the powers of Shazam seem small in comparison. If Freddy is going to be rescued, they will need answers before they can take action. Their search for those answers leads them back to the wizard who originally shared his powers with Billy and his siblings. The wizard explains that the magic flowing through the Shazam family was created using the strength, courage, wisdom, and power of ancient gods, including Atlas himself. When the daughters of Atlas speak about stolen power, they are not entirely wrong. From their perspective, humanity was given abilities that never belonged to them in the first place. The wizard warns Billy that the magical staff now in the hands of Hespera and Calypso is capable of much more than simply taking powers away. If fully restored, it could tear open the barriers between realms and allow ancient creatures from forgotten worlds to enter Earth freely. Even worse, the staff has the ability to disrupt the very magic that gives the Shazam family their abilities, making them vulnerable for the first time since becoming heroes. Meanwhile, Freddy remains imprisoned but refuses to lose hope. During his captivity, he spends more time with Anthea, who continues to struggle between loyalty to her sisters and sympathy for humanity. Freddy learns more about the world she comes from and begins to understand the pain that drives her family. The daughters of Atlas watched their world collapse and blamed humanity for taking what belonged to them. Yet Freddy also helps Anthea see a different side of humans, one capable of kindness, sacrifice, and compassion rather than greed and destruction. Their conversation slowly changed her perspective, and for the first time she openly questions whether revenge is worth the suffering it will bring. Although she cannot openly betray her sisters, it becomes clear that her loyalty to their mission is beginning to weaken. While these events unfold, strange phenomena begin appearing throughout Philadelphia. Massive storms gather without warning, strange lightning tears across the sky, and reports of impossible creatures spread across the city. Citizens witness monsters that should only exist in myths and ancient stories. The appearance of these creatures confirms the wizard's fears that the barriers between worlds are already beginning to break down. The Shazam family rushes to contain the chaos, rescuing civilians and fighting creatures that seem to come from another age entirely. However, every victory feels temporary because more creatures continue appearing. Billy realizes that they are treating symptoms rather than solving the actual problem. Unless the daughters of Atlas are stopped, the entire world may soon become overrun by beings from forgotten realms. As the magical crisis grows worse, Calypso becomes increasingly impatient with her sister Hespera's cautious approach. Unlike Hespera, who focuses on reclaiming what was lost, Calypso wants punishment and destruction. She believes humanity should suffer for benefiting from powers stolen from the gods and sees the collapse of human civilization as a necessary step toward restoring divine order. This difference in philosophy creates tension between the sisters and reveals cracks within their alliance. Anthea notices this conflict and understands that Calypso's ambitions may eventually consume everything, including their own family. At the same time, Billy begins realizing that his enemies may not be as united as they appear. If he can understand their divisions, he may determined to save Freddy and stop the growing crisis, Billy leads the family toward a confrontation with Hespera and Calypso. The meeting quickly turns hostile as the daughters of Atlas make their position clear. They accuse the heroes of carrying stolen power and demand the return of the abilities given to them by the wizard years earlier. Billy argues that powers do not define a hero and that his family has spent years using those gifts to protect innocent people. However, Calypso refuses to listen to reason. To her, humanity has proven itself selfish and unworthy of divine gifts. Hespera appears more willing to negotiate, but even she believes the balance of magic can only be restored if the powers of Shazam are returned to the gods. During the tense exchange, Billy begins to understand that this conflict is not simply about revenge. It is about two completely different views of what humanity deserves and who has the right to control power. Meanwhile, Freddy's relationship with Anthea continues to evolve inside captivity. Although she remains loyal to her sisters, she finds it increasingly difficult to ignore Freddy's arguments about humanity's capacity for goodness. Freddy reminds her that people are not defined by the mistakes of the past and that countless heroes have risked everything to protect others despite having nothing to gain. Anthea sees honesty and compassion in Freddy that directly contradict everything she has been taught to believe about humans. Their conversations slowly change her perspective and force her to question whether restoring the old world is worth destroying the current one. For Freddy, these discussions become more than just a way to pass time in captivity. He realizes that Anthea may become the key to preventing a war that could destroy both worlds. The conflict escalates dramatically when Calypso uses the magical staff to unleash even greater chaos upon the city. Massive creatures inspired by ancient mythology begin appearing across Philadelphia, spreading fear and destruction wherever they go. The Shazam family splits up to protect civilians and prevent further casualties, leading to several dangerous battles happening simultaneously across the city. Despite their powers, the heroes struggle against enemies empowered by divine magic. Every fight leaves them more exhausted, while their opponents seem to grow stronger as the magical barriers continue collapsing. Billy starts to understand that simply defeating monsters will never solve the larger problem. As long as the staff remains active and Calypso continues using its power, the invasion of mythological creatures will only become worse. During one particularly difficult battle, Billy notices something unexpected about his siblings. Instead of waiting for orders or relying entirely on him for leadership, each member begins making smart decisions independently and supporting one another without hesitation. For years, Billy believed that holding the family together meant carrying every responsibility himself. But now he sees that his family is stronger because they stand together rather than because of one person leading them. This realization changes the way he sees himself and the people around him. Leadership is not about preventing every mistake or protecting everyone from every danger. It is about trusting others enough to fight beside you and believing in their strength even during impossible situations. Center of the chaos with complete confidence, believing that she is finally restoring the world that was stolen from her family centuries ago. Using the power of the magical staff and the legendary Seed of Life, she begins reshaping reality according to the rules of the old gods. Ancient trees rise higher than skyscrapers, rivers change their paths, and creatures from myths and legends emerge from the expanding forests to claim territory that once belonged to humanity. Unlike Hespera, who originally sought balance and justice, Calypso wants domination and punishment. She no longer sees humans as individuals capable of kindness or heroism. To her, humanity represents greed, arrogance, and betrayal. Every building destroyed and every street consumed by magic feels justified in her eyes because she believes she is correcting a mistake made thousands of years earlier. Her anger has grown so powerful that even Hespera begins fearing what her sister is becoming. Meanwhile, Billy and his family regroup to discuss their next move. For the first time since becoming superheroes, they face an enemy who cannot simply be punched into defeat. The staff controls the flow of magic itself, and as long as it remains active, Calypso's influence over the city will continue growing stronger. Billy listens carefully as each member of the family offers ideas and strategies, and he notices something important happening around him. Earlier in his journey as a leader, he believed leadership meant carrying every responsibility alone and making every important decision himself. Now he realizes that true leadership means trusting the people around you and allowing them to contribute their strengths when they are needed most. His siblings are no longer children depending entirely on him for guidance. They have become heroes in their own right, capable of making difficult choices and standing beside him as equals. That realization gives Billy a confidence he has not felt in a long time. At the same time, Anthea finds herself trapped between two worlds. On one side stands her family, bound together by centuries of pain and loss. On the other side stand the humans she was taught to distrust but has slowly come to understand through her friendship with Freddie. Watching the destruction spread across Philadelphia forces her to confront a painful truth. What began as an attempt to reclaim stolen power has become an act of destruction that threatens innocent lives on an unimaginable scale. Freddie's words continue echoing in her mind as she watches people risk their own safety to help strangers escape danger. She sees courage, compassion, and sacrifice everywhere she looks, qualities that directly challenge everything she believed about humanity. Eventually, Anthea reaches a decision that changes the course of the conflict. She chooses to stand against Calypso even if doing so means betraying her own family. Hespera arrives at a similar conclusion after witnessing the consequences of Calypso's actions. Although she still believes the gods were wrong by the wizard's decision centuries ago, she never wanted revenge to come at the cost of countless innocent lives. The growing forests, the spreading destruction, and the fear visible in the faces of ordinary people force her to reconsider everything she has fought for. When she confronts Calypso, the disagreement between the sisters quickly escalates into open conflict. Calypso refuses to listen to warnings or reason, convinced that only complete victory can restore honor to their family. Hespera realizes that her sister's desire for revenge has become more important to her than justice itself. This division weakens the daughters of Atlas for the first time since their arrival and gives Billy a chance he never expected to have. As night falls over Philadelphia, the city becomes the center of a war between ancient magic and modern humanity. Mythical creatures roam the streets while civilians desperately search for safety. The Shazam family splits up once again to protect as many people as possible, while Billy, Freddie, and a few others move toward the source of the magical energy consuming the city. Every step toward Calypso brings new dangers as the environment itself seems determined to stop them. Enormous roots block roads, magical storms fill the skies with lightning, and creatures born from ancient legends attack without warning. Yet, despite the overwhelming odds, the heroes continue moving forward because they understand that turning back is no longer an option. During one of the battles, Billy notices how naturally his family works together now. Without needing instructions, each member supports the others and adapts to changing situations instantly. Freddie covers civilians trying to escape dangerous areas, while Mary coordinates rescue efforts, and the younger members use their powers creatively to overcome obstacles. Billy realizes that the family he feared losing has not been drifting apart at all. They have been growing stronger together, becoming individuals capable of standing on their own while still remaining united. The fear that once controlled him begins losing its power because he finally understands that family is not defined by staying together every second of every day. It is defined by the willingness to stand beside one another when it matters most. As the heroes approach their final confrontation with Calypso, Billy looks across the transformed city and understands that the battle ahead may demand sacrifices none of them are prepared to make. The magical energy surrounding the staff has reached dangerous levels, and every moment it remains active brings the world closer to irreversible destruction. Yet for the first time since the conflict began, Billy no longer feels alone. His family stands beside him, new allies have emerged from unexpected places, and even some of his enemies have chosen hope over revenge. The future remains uncertain, but one thing has become clear. The fate of the gods, humanity, and magic itself will soon be decided in a battle that none of them will ever forget. As the magical storm above Philadelphia grows stronger, Billy and the rest of the Shazam family realize that they are approaching the point of no return. The city beneath them no longer resembles the place they have spent years protecting. Massive trees tower over skyscrapers, glowing roots wrap around buildings like giant serpents, and creatures from ancient myths roam freely through streets that were once crowded with traffic and people rushing to work. The barrier separating the human world from the forgotten realms of magic is weakening faster than anyone expected. Every second that passes allows more magical energy to pour into Earth, strengthening Calypso while making it increasingly difficult to reverse the damage already done. Billy understands that if they fail tonight, there may not be another chance to save either world. While the heroes prepare for the final confrontation, Hespera and Anthea decide to openly oppose Calypso's plans. It is a painful choice for both sisters because it means standing against their own family, but they can no longer ignore the destruction spreading around them. Hespera finally admits that revenge has blinded them and that restoring honor to their father should never have required the suffering of innocent people. Anthea agrees, explaining that her time among humans has shown her qualities she never expected to find: courage, loyalty, kindness, and sacrifice. For centuries, the daughters of Atlas believed humanity was selfish and undeserving of divine power, yet the actions of Billy and his family have proven otherwise. Their decision to help the heroes creates an uneasy alliance, but it also gives Billy information that may finally allow them to stop Calypso before the world reaches complete collapse. Meanwhile, Calypso becomes more dangerous than ever as the power of the staff continues flowing through her. The magical energy begins affecting her judgment, amplifying her anger and obsession until they consume almost every other emotion. She becomes convinced that only total destruction can erase the mistakes of the past and restore the age of the gods. Using the seed of life and the staff together, she summons even more creatures from forgotten legends to defend her growing kingdom in the center of the city. Dragons circle through storm clouds while monstrous beasts patrol the streets below, turning entire neighborhoods into battlefields. Citizens who remain trapped inside the city depend entirely on the heroes for survival. and the Shazam family throws itself into rescue efforts despite knowing that every moment spent helping civilians brings Calypso closer to completing her plan. Billy divides the team into smaller groups so they can protect civilians while also pushing toward the center of the magical storm. Unlike earlier battles where confusion and arguments slowed them down, the family now operates with complete trust in one another. Freddie leads evacuation efforts through dangerous sections of the city, while Mary coordinates rescue operations from the air. Pedro and Eugene use their powers to clear escape routes for trapped families, while Darla moves through the streets at incredible speed, helping injured civilians reach safety. Watching his siblings work together so naturally gives Billy a sense of pride that he has never experienced before. The family he spent so much time fearing he would lose has become stronger than ever, and for the first time he understands that growing older does not mean growing apart. As Billy and Freddie move closer to Calypso's location, they encounter one of the most dangerous creatures yet released by the Seed of Life. The massive beast tears through buildings as though they were made of paper, and forces the heroes into one of the toughest battles of their lives. Even with their powers, defeating the creature proves incredibly difficult, because the magic empowering it comes directly from the same ancient source fueling the destruction across the city. During the fight, Billy notices civilians risking their own safety to help strangers escape danger, reminding him once again that heroism is not defined by superpowers. Ordinary people continue showing courage even when surrounded by monsters and chaos. That realization strengthens Billy's determination because it proves that humanity is worth protecting no matter what the Daughters of Atlas may believe. Eventually, the heroes reach the center of the transformed city, where Calypso stands surrounded by magical energy and the growing roots of the Seed of Life. Lightning fills the sky above her, while pieces of the city crumble under the pressure of the ancient power she now controls. Billy attempts one final time to reason with her, arguing that revenge will never bring peace, and that destroying one world cannot restore another. For a brief moment it almost seems as though his words reach her, but the years of anger and loss prove stronger than any argument he can make. Calypso refuses to abandon her mission, and prepares for a battle that will determine the fate of both worlds. Around them the storm intensifies, creatures gather for the coming conflict, and the magical staff releases waves of energy powerful enough to shake the city itself. As the final battle begins, Billy realizes that victory may require more than strength or strategy. The staff has become unstable, the magical energy surrounding it continues increasing, and even if Calypso is defeated, the power it contains may still destroy everything around it. For the first time since becoming Shazam, Billy is forced to consider the possibility that saving the world could demand a sacrifice greater than he has ever imagined making. Looking at his family standing beside him, he understands that being a hero is not about avoiding fear or protecting yourself from loss. It is about choosing to do what is necessary, even when the cost feels unbearable. With the future of humanity hanging in the balance, and the storm growing stronger with every passing second, Billy prepares himself for the decision that will define not only his destiny, but the legacy of Shazam itself. The final battle erupts across the heart of Philadelphia as magical lightning tears through the sky and ancient creatures continue spreading destruction through the city. At the center of it all stands Calypso, now completely consumed by the power flowing through the staff and the seed of life. The energy surrounding her has become unstable, creating waves powerful enough to shatter buildings and tear apart the boundaries between worlds. Billy and the Shazam family launch their attack together, knowing that this may be their last opportunity to stop the collapse of reality itself. Every member of the team fights with a level of determination that goes far beyond simply winning a battle. They are fighting for their home, their family, and for millions of people who have no idea how close the world is to ending. The fight quickly becomes one of the most difficult battles the heroes have ever faced. Calypso controls the battlefield itself, using magic to create barriers, summon attacks from every direction, and command creatures born from myth and legend. Dragons circle above the city, while monstrous beasts force the heroes to divide their attention between protecting civilians and surviving the battle. Freddie and Mary work together to keep civilians away from danger, while Pedro and Eugene battle creatures trying to reach evacuation zones. Darley uses her incredible speed to rescue trapped families from collapsing buildings, while Billy focuses entirely on reaching Calypso before the staff becomes completely unstable. Despite their efforts, the scale of the destruction continues growing, and for the first time, the heroes begin to wonder whether they may already be too late. Meanwhile, Hespera and Anthea join the battle against their sister, fully accepting that there is no longer any path back to the family they once knew. Hespera tries one final time to convince Calypso to stop, reminding her that their father would never have wanted innocent people to suffer for the mistakes of others. She argues that justice and revenge are not the same thing, and that the line between them disappeared long ago. Calypso refuses to listen. Years of anger, grief, and resentment have consumed her completely, leaving no room for compromise or forgiveness. To her, restoring the old world matters more than anything else, even if it means destroying the current one in the process. Watching her sister reject every attempt at peace leaves Hespera heartbroken, but also certain that the battle can now end only one way. As the conflict intensifies, Billy finally reaches Calypso and engages her directly. The fight pushes both of them to their limits, as lightning and magical energy explode around them. Billy quickly realizes that defeating her through strength alone may be impossible, because the staff continues feeding her more power with every passing moment. During the battle, he notices something even more frightening. The magical energy within the staff is becoming increasingly unstable. Cracks of power spread through the sky, and the barriers separating dimensions begin breaking apart faster than before. Even if Calypso is defeated, the energy released by the staff may still destroy the city and possibly much more. Billy understands that they are no longer fighting to win a battle. They are fighting against a disaster that has already begun. Hespera eventually discovers a terrible truth about the staff's condition. The only way to stop the magical chain reaction may be to contain the energy inside a sealed environment before it reaches a critical level. Unfortunately, doing so would require someone to remain inside the barrier with the staff until the explosion occurs. The realization changes everything. Suddenly, the question is no longer how to defeat Calypso, but who is willing to stay behind if that becomes necessary. Billy immediately understands the implication, though he says nothing at first. Looking around at his family, he sees people who have given him a home, a purpose, and a future he never believed he would have. For years he feared losing them, but now he faces the possibility of giving up everything to ensure they survive. The rest of the family continues fighting desperately to buy time while Billy struggles with the decision forming in his mind. He watches Freddie protect civilians despite his injuries, sees Mary refusing to leave dangerous areas until everyone is safe, and notices the determination in the faces of every person standing beside him. In that moment, Billy finally understands something he had been trying to learn since the beginning of the story. Family is not something that can be held together by fear or protected by controlling every outcome. Family survives because people choose one another again and again, especially during the hardest moments. The fear of being left behind that haunted him for so long suddenly loses its power because he realizes that the love connecting them cannot be destroyed by distance, time, or even sacrifice. As the magical storm reaches unprecedented levels, Billy prepares himself for what may become the most important decision of his life. Around him, the city shakes under the pressure of ancient forces colliding with the modern world. The skies burn with magical energy while the boundaries between dimensions continue collapsing. Hespera and Anthea fight desperately to slow the destruction, but even they know time is running out. Billy looks one last time at the family standing beside him and understands that being a hero has never been about power, fame, or even victory. Sometimes heroism means accepting responsibility when no one else can. Sometimes it means protecting the people you love, even if they may never know the price you paid. And as the storm grows stronger and the world moves closer to destruction, Billy steps forward, ready to make the choice that could save everyone else, no matter what it costs him. As the magical storm reaches its peak, Philadelphia stands on the edge of complete destruction. The sky is filled with violent lightning. The streets are covered with massive roots from the seed of life, and creatures from forgotten legends continue emerging through cracks forming between worlds. Buildings shake under the pressure of unstable magical energy, while civilians desperately search for safety. The Shazam family continues fighting with everything they have, but even they can see that the situation is slipping beyond anyone's control. The power contained inside the staff has grown too great, and every passing second increases the risk of an explosion capable of destroying not only the city, but potentially the barriers protecting the entire world from collapse. Billy realizes that defeating Calypso alone will not be enough anymore. The staff itself has become the real threat. During the battle, Hespero confirms everyone's worst fears. The magical energy building inside the staff can no longer be stabilized through ordinary means. The only remaining option is to trap the energy inside the magical dome surrounding the city, and allow the explosion to happen in isolation before it spreads across the world. However, there is one terrible condition attached to that plan. Someone must remain inside the barrier with the staff until the final moment, to ensure the containment holds. Once the explosion begins, there will be no opportunity to escape. The person left behind will almost certainly die, with the city-sized blast of magical energy. Silence falls over the heroes as they understand the reality of the situation. For the first time since gaining their powers, they are facing a problem that cannot be solved through teamwork, strategy, or strength alone. Billy quietly makes his decision long before he tells anyone else. Throughout the entire journey, he has been terrified of losing his family, but now he realizes that protecting them matters more than protecting himself. Looking at Freddie, Mary, Darla, Pedro, Eugene, and the parents who gave him a home when he had nowhere else to go, Billy understands something that had escaped him for years. Family is not about keeping people close forever. It is about loving them enough to do whatever is necessary to keep them safe, even if it means making sacrifices no one should ever have to make. The fear that once controlled every decision he made finally disappears because he knows that the people he loves will carry a part of him with them, no matter what happens next. Meanwhile, Calypso continues attacking with increasing desperation as she realizes her plans are beginning to fall apart. The magical energy she unleashed is no longer fully under her control, and even she struggles to contain the power growing around her. Billy confronts her one final time while the rest of the family works to evacuate civilians and prepare the containment barrier. Their final battle is brutal and chaotic, taking place among collapsing buildings and storms powerful enough to shake the city itself. Billy fights not with anger or hatred, but with determination, knowing that every second he keeps Calypso occupied gives his family more time to save lives. During the struggle, Calypso refuses every chance to walk away from the conflict, remaining convinced that restoring the old world is worth any price. Her inability to let go of the past ultimately becomes the reason for her downfall. As the energy inside the staff reaches critical levels, Billy manages to separate Calypso from the weapon and move toward the center of the containment field. Around him, the city continues falling apart while magical lightning strikes the ground with terrifying force. His family realizes what he intends to do and desperately tries to reach him, but Billy knows there is no longer enough time. Through the chaos, he shares one final look with the people who changed his life forever. There are no long speeches or dramatic farewells, because some moments are too important for words. Everything that needs to be said already exists in the trust and love they built together over the years. Billy finally speaks the word that transformed his life so many years ago and prepares to face the consequences of the choice he has made. Outside the barrier, the rest of the family watches helplessly as Billy remains behind with the unstable staff. Freddie struggles to accept what is happening, while Mary and the others continue searching for another solution, refusing to believe that this is truly the end. Hespera watches silently, recognizing the incredible courage required to make such a decision. For centuries she believed humanity was selfish and undeserving of divine power. Yet the young hero standing before her is willing to give up everything for people who are not even related to him by blood. In that moment, she finally understands what Atlas and the gods may have failed to see long ago. The true value of humanity has never been strength or power. It has always been the willingness to sacrifice for others. As the magical energy finally reaches its breaking point, Billy stands alone at the center of the storm, while the staff begins releasing power beyond anything the world has ever seen. The sky becomes blindingly bright, the ground trembles beneath the city, and the fate of everyone he loves rests on the choice he has made. For Billy Batson, the frightened boy who spent years fearing abandonment and loneliness, the journey has come full circle. He is no longer afraid of losing his family because he finally understands that family is not something that can ever truly be lost. And as the light consumes the battlefield and the future hangs in the balance, Billy closes his eyes, knowing that whatever happens next, he has finally become the hero he always hoped he could be. The explosion of magical energy tears through the sky like a second sun rising over Philadelphia. For a few terrifying moments, the entire city disappears behind blinding light as the power trapped inside the staff is finally released. The ground shakes violently, Windows shatter across distant neighborhoods, and the magical barrier surrounding the city absorbs wave after wave of destructive energy. Outside the dome, Billy's family watches helplessly, unable to do anything except hope that somehow he survives the impossible. Freddie falls to his knees in disbelief, while Mary and the others stare silently at the place where their brother had been standing only moments earlier. For years Billy had feared being abandoned by the people he loved, but in the end he became the one willing to stay behind so everyone else could have a future. As the light slowly fades, the magical storm that had covered Philadelphia begins disappearing for the first time in days. The violent winds stop almost instantly, the unnatural lightning vanishes from the sky, and the cracks that had started forming between dimensions begin sealing themselves shut. Across the city, the creatures released from myth and legend either disappear completely or lose the magical connection that allowed them to remain in the human world. The massive roots of the seed of life stop growing, and although the city remains heavily damaged, the destruction finally comes to an end. Humanity has survived. The ancient age of gods and monsters has been pushed back into history once again. Yet despite the victory, no one feels like celebrating, because the price of that victory appears to have been far too high. When the barrier eventually collapses, the Shazam family rushes toward the center of the destroyed battlefield, searching desperately for Billy. What they find only deepens their heartbreak. The staff lies shattered among the ruins, while Billy's human body rests motionless nearby, no longer surrounded by magical energy or divine lightning. For a long moment no one speaks. Freddy struggles to accept what he is seeing, while the others stand frozen by grief and disbelief. Billy had entered their lives as a frightened teenager who expected rejection from everyone around him, yet over time he had become the person who held the family together during their hardest moments. Looking at him now, they realized just how much he had changed all of them. The boy who once feared losing his family had ultimately given everything to protect it. Meanwhile, Hespera witnesses the aftermath of Billy's sacrifice and finally understands the lesson that humanity had been trying to teach her from the beginning. For centuries she and her sisters believed humans were selfish creatures who would always place their own survival above everyone else's. Billy's actions destroy that belief completely. He was given incredible power and countless opportunities to protect himself, yet he willingly chose to give up his future so others could live. Hespera recognizes that this kind of sacrifice is not weakness but perhaps the greatest strength any living being can possess. Although she arrived on Earth seeking justice for her family, she now realizes that revenge blinded them to the qualities that made humanity worthy of trust in the first place. As the city begins recovering from the disaster, people slowly emerge from shelters and damaged buildings to see the destruction left behind. News spreads quickly about the heroes who fought to save the city, and for the first time since the beginning of the crisis, the public no longer sees the Shazam family as reckless or irresponsible. Stories begin circulating about rescues, acts of courage, and sacrifices made during the battle. Citizens who had once criticized the heroes now speak about them with admiration and gratitude. The city finally understands what Billy had always tried to prove. Heroes are not defined by perfection, but by the willingness to stand between danger and innocent lives no matter the cost. Back at home, the Foster family struggles to adapt to life after the battle. The house that had once been filled with Billy's jokes, arguments, and attempts at leadership suddenly feels painfully quiet. Freddie especially finds it difficult to accept the loss because he had shared so many adventures and dreams with his brother. Even simple moments inside the house become reminders of the person who should still be there. Yet, despite the grief, something else begins to emerge among the family members: gratitude. Billy's sacrifice saved not only them, but millions of people who would never even know his name. The lessons he learned about trust, family, and courage continue living through the people he left behind. At the same time, Anthea chooses to remain connected to the human world rather than returning completely to the old ways of the gods. Her experiences during the conflict changed her understanding of humanity forever, and she wants to honor Billy's memory by helping rebuild what was damaged. Hespera also leaves with a new understanding of the world she once wanted to destroy. Although the pain of losing her father and her home remains, she no longer believes that revenge can heal those wounds. Some losses can only be carried forward rather than erased through anger or violence. That realization brings an end to a conflict that had begun centuries before Billy Batson was even born. As the sun rises over a recovering Philadelphia, the surviving members of the Shazam family stand together looking across the city they fought so hard to save. The future remains uncertain, and the pain of what they lost has not disappeared, but they understand something important now. Billy never wanted them to stop living or stop moving forward. He wanted them to remain a family, to continue protecting others, and to believe in the same hope that had transformed his own life. For the first time since the battle ended, Freddie allows himself to smile at the memory of his brother, because he realizes that Billy's story may not be over after all. In worlds filled with gods, magic, and impossible miracles, sometimes hope survives even when everything else seems lost. As the days pass after the battle, Philadelphia slowly begins recovering from the greatest disaster in its history. Construction crews clear damaged streets, emergency workers continue helping displaced families, and life gradually starts returning to normal. Yet, despite the progress, the memory of what happened remains visible everywhere. Broken buildings, destroyed roads, and the remains of the magical forest stand as reminders of how close the world came to destruction. For the Shazam family, however, the deepest wounds cannot be repaired with time or rebuilding efforts. The loss of Billy leaves anger toward humanity grows stronger. They blame the wizard and the Shazam family for stealing divine abilities that were never meant for humans to possess. To them, this is not simply revenge, but justice delayed for centuries. Billy remains completely unaware of the danger approaching him and his family. He believes his biggest challenge is learning how to become a better leader and keeping his family together as they grow older. Soon he will discover that his fears are about to be tested in ways he never imagined possible. Ancient gods, mythical creatures, and powers capable of reshaping reality itself are preparing to enter his world. For the first time since becoming Shazam, Billy will face enemies who are not interested in money, fame, or control of a city. They want the very source of his power, and they are willing to destroy everything standing in their way to get it back. The battle between heroes and gods is about to begin, and Billy Batson has no idea that the fate of his family and the entire world is about to rest on his shoulders. Freddie Freeman's ordinary school day takes an unexpected turn when he grows closer to a mysterious new student named Anne. Unlike most people at school, she listens to his stories, understands his sense of humor, and never treats him like an outsider. For Freddie, who has spent years feeling different because of his disability and secret superhero life, her attention feels refreshing and genuine. Their conversations quickly become the highlight of his days, and for the first time in a long while, Freddie begins to imagine a future that includes more than just fighting villains and saving the city. However, unknown to him, Anne is hiding a secret powerful enough to change everything he believes about his world. While Freddie sees an ordinary girl with an interest in mythology and history, the truth is far more complicated and dangerous than he could ever imagine. At the same time, Billy Batson continues struggling with his responsibilities as both a teenager and the leader of the Shazam family. Although the public sees powerful heroes flying through the skies of Philadelphia, Billy feels increasingly uncertain about his ability to keep everyone together. His foster siblings are becoming more independent every day, and he worries that eventually they will leave to pursue their own lives, leaving him alone once again. These fears affect his confidence during missions, causing him to overthink decisions and place enormous pressure on himself. The recent criticism from the media following the bridge rescue only makes things worse. Instead of feeling like a successful hero, Billy feels like a teenager pretending to be one. He wants to prove that he deserves both his powers and his family, but deep inside he fears he may lose both. Meanwhile, far from the city, the daughters of Atlas continue restoring the ancient magical staff they recovered from the museum. Hespera and Calypso reveal more of their true intentions as they discuss the power that was taken from their father centuries earlier. To them, the wizard's decision to give divine abilities to ordinary humans was an unforgivable betrayal of the gods. They believe that humanity has misused powers that were never meant.
Refuses to listen to warnings or reason, convinced that only complete victory can restore honor to their family. Hespera realizes that her sister's desire for revenge has become more important to her than justice itself. This division weakens the daughters of Atlas for the first time since their arrival and gives Billy a chance he never expected to have. As night falls over Philadelphia, the city becomes the center of a war between ancient magic and modern humanity. Mythical creatures roam the streets while civilians desperately search for safety. The Shazam family splits up once again to protect as many people as possible, while Billy, Freddy, and a few others move toward the source of the magical energy consuming the city. Every step toward Calypso brings new dangers as the environment itself seems determined to stop them. Enormous roots block roads, magical storms fill the skies with lightning, and creatures born from ancient legends attack without warning. Yet, despite the overwhelming odds, the heroes continue moving forward because they understand that turning back is no longer an option. During one of the battles, Billy notices how naturally his family works together now. Without needing instructions, each member supports the others and adapts to changing situations instantly. Freddy covers civilians trying to escape dangerous areas, while Mary coordinates rescue efforts, and the younger members use their powers creatively to overcome obstacles. Billy realizes that the family he feared losing has not been drifting apart at all. They have been growing stronger together, becoming individuals capable of standing on their own while still remaining united. The fear that once controlled him begins losing its power because he finally understands that family is not defined by staying together every second of every day. It is defined by the willingness to stand beside one another when it matters most. As the heroes approach their final confrontation with Calypso that has already begun, Hespera eventually discovers a terrible truth about the staff's condition. The only way to stop the magical chain reaction may be to contain the energy inside a sealed environment before it reaches a critical level. Unfortunately, doing so would require someone to remain inside the barrier with the staff until the explosion occurs. The realization changes everything.
Suddenly, the question is no longer how to defeat Calypso, but who is willing to stay behind if that becomes necessary. Billy immediately understands the implication, though he says nothing at first. Looking around at his family, he sees people who have given him a home, a purpose, and a future he never believed he would have. For years he feared losing them, but now he faces the possibility of giving up everything to ensure they survive. The rest of the family continues fighting desperately to buy time while Billy struggles with the decision forming in his mind. He watches Freddy protect civilians despite his injuries, sees Mary refusing to leave dangerous areas until everyone is safe, and notices the determination in the faces of every person standing beside him. In that moment, Billy finally understands something he had been trying to learn since the beginning of the story. Family is not something that can be held together by fear or protected by controlling every outcome. Family survives because people choose one another again and again, especially during the hardest moments. The fear of being left behind that haunted him for so long suddenly loses its power because he realizes that the love connecting them cannot be destroyed by distance, time, or even sacrifice. As the magical storm reaches unprecedented levels, Billy prepares himself for what may become the most important decision of his life. Around him, the city shakes under the pressure of ancient forces colliding with the modern world. The skies burn with magical energy, while the boundaries between dimensions continue collapsing. Hespera and Anthea fight desperately to slow the destruction, but even they know time is running out. Billy looks one last time at the family standing beside him and understands that being a hero has never been about power, fame, or even victory. Sometimes heroism means accepting responsibility when no one else can. Sometimes it means protecting the people you love, even if they may never know the price you paid. And as the storm grows stronger and the world moves closer to destruction, Billy steps forward, ready to make the choice that could save everyone else, no matter what it costs him. As the magical storm reaches its peak, Philadelphia stands on the edge of complete destruction. The sky is filled with violent lightning. The streets are covered with massive roots from the seed of life, and creatures from forgotten legends continue emerging through cracks forming between worlds. Buildings shake under the pressure of unstable magical energy, while civilians desperately search for safety. The Shazam family continues fighting with everything they have, but even they can see that the situation is slipping beyond anyone's control. The power contained inside the staff has grown too great, and every passing second increases the risk of an explosion capable of destroying not only the city, but potentially the barriers protecting the entire world from collapse. Billy realizes that defeating Calypso alone will not be enough anymore. The staff itself has become the real threat. During the battle, Hespero confirms everyone's worst fears. The magical
An emptiness inside the house that none of them know how to fill. Every room, every conversation, and every quiet moment reminds them of the brother who spent so much of his life fearing abandonment, but ultimately became the person who gave everything for the people he loved most. Freddy struggles more than anyone to accept what happened. Throughout their adventures, Billy had always been the one trying to keep everyone together, even when he doubted himself as a leader. Looking back, Freddy realizes that Billy had never truly understood how important he was to the family. The person who spent years worrying that everyone would eventually leave him behind had actually become the center holding them all together. Mary tries to comfort the younger members of the family by reminding them that Billy's sacrifice was not an act of loss, but an act of love. He made his choice because he believed their lives were worth protecting, and dishonoring that choice by giving up hope would be the opposite of what he wanted for them. Slowly, the family begins finding strength in each other, proving once again that the bond connecting them was always stronger than fear. Meanwhile, far from the city, powerful figures observed the events that unfolded during the battle with great interest. Billy's sacrifice has attracted attention far beyond the human world. Among those aware of what happened are beings who understand the value of courage and selflessness better than almost anyone else. In a universe filled with powerful individuals seeking glory, revenge, or control, acts of genuine sacrifice remain incredibly rare. The willingness to give up everything for strangers and family alike is the kind of choice that even gods find impossible to ignore. Unknown to the Shazam family, forces far greater than themselves are beginning to consider whether Billy Batson's story truly deserves to end here. Back in Philadelphia, the family gathers to honor Billy's memory and reflect on everything they experienced together. Instead of focusing only on sadness, they share stories about his mistakes, his awkward attempts at leadership, and the moments that made him part of their lives long before he became a hero. They remember the frightened teenager who arrived searching for a place to belong, and the brave young man who eventually discovered that family is not something you find once but something you choose every single day. These memories help them realize that Billy's greatest achievement was never saving the world or defeating powerful enemies. His greatest achievement was learning how to love and trust others, despite the fears that followed him throughout his childhood. Then, when hope seems almost gone, something extraordinary happens. Through forces connected to the gods themselves, Billy is given a second chance at life. The sacrifice that should have ended his story instead becomes proof of his worthiness. Slowly he awakens, surrounded by confusion and disbelief as the people who love him struggle to accept what they are seeing. The emotional reunion that follows becomes one of the most powerful moments of their journey. Freddie, Mary, Darla, Pedro, Eugene, and their parents rush to him, overwhelmed by relief and joy after believing they had lost him forever. For Billy, the moment feels almost unreal because it represents the exact opposite of the fear that controlled him for so long. The family he worried about losing never stopped fighting for him, never stopped loving him, and never stopped believing that he would find his way back to them somehow. As life slowly returns to normal, Billy notices that something inside him has changed. The fear of abandonment that once shaped so many of his decisions no longer controls him the way it used to. He finally understands that family is not defined by blood, distance, or even time. The people who truly care about one another remain connected regardless of where life takes them. That realization allows Billy to embrace his future with the confidence and maturity he lacked before the battle. He no longer sees himself as a child pretending to be a hero. He sees himself as someone capable of leading, protecting others, and trusting the people standing beside him. The Shazam family eventually returns to doing what they do best, helping people, protecting their city, and facing new adventures together. Their experiences with the Daughters of Atlas changed all of them in different ways, but perhaps the greatest lesson came from Billy himself. Power alone does not make someone a hero. Heroism comes from compassion, responsibility, loyalty, and the willingness to place others before yourself when it matters most. Those qualities exist in ordinary people every single day, and the events surrounding the battle simply made those truths impossible to ignore. As Billy looks across Philadelphia with his family standing beside him, he realizes that the journey that began with loneliness and uncertainty has led him somewhere he never expected to reach. He has a family, a purpose, and a place where he belongs. The boy who once ran from every home he was offered now understands that home was never a place at all. Home was the people who refused to give up on him even when he struggled to believe in himself. And with new adventures waiting somewhere beyond the horizon, Billy Batson smiles knowing that whatever challenges come next, he will never have to face them alone again.